Um, yeah, and it looks like it's all set now. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining to the session. My name is Alyssa. I'm together with BGA, and I will be moderating the session today with Dr. Mariya Heletiy. I will briefly introduce Dr. Mariya, and then I will continue with a few questions that you're more than welcome to join. You can just type your questions in the chat during the session, and I will read them. I will maybe select a few and I'll read them to Dr. Heletiy. So to begin with, Dr. Mariya Heletiy is a Ukrainian political scientist. She's a prominent international relations expert. Her expertise lays mostly in conflict resolution field, but also in civil society empowerment and democratic governance. For more than 20 years now, she has been working on promoting peace and conflict resolution, both in international organizations, in development projects, and with public institutions as well. Dr. Heletiy has a very extensive and impressive background, so I will share a few key points of her career today. So she has been closely working with USAID Ukraine as a deputy chief of party for the Ukraine civil society sectoral support activity. In this role, she focused on the legal framework, on sustainability, and making sure that Ukrainian civil society has the needed institutional resilience by building those frameworks. Previously, she led security and policy projects at the Open Ukraine Foundation, and earlier in her career, she founded and directed the European Information and Research Center of Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine that is now integrated and functioning as a parliament's research service. Dr. Heletiy earned her master's and her PhD in international relations, and she focused on conflicts in the Balkans, including but not limited to the conflict of Nagorno-Karabakh. And until recently, her focus was mainly on the Balkans. That had also shifted to Ukraine and is being complemented by her long experience. Today, the mission of the session is to discuss her recent piece in the Ukraine Analytica, the peace formula and lessons learned from the Balkans and Nagorno-Karabakh. As I mentioned before, I will ask Dr. Heletiy a few questions that I have prepared myself based on her article, and we will see how those lessons learned in those conflicts can be applied to today's war in Ukraine, what we can use and learn from those peace efforts to establish peace right now, and what peace formulas can we look at while thinking and discussing the conflict. Mariya, I will give you an introductory word, and after that, I can ask you a few questions.
Good afternoon. Thank you for introduction, Alyssa. Actually, for me, Ukraine's war is very important. I mean, the resolution of Ukraine's war is very important because I'm Ukrainian, and I believe that having my experience in conflict resolution, which is not very common for Ukraine and also for other countries, because Europe for many years, for 50 years, did not experience conflicts except conflicts in the Balkan region. But it's a bit different, but still it is, I think, one of the conflicts which makes sense to look at. And also Nagorno-Karabakh, but it's not European conflict. It is a bit post-Soviet conflict, I would say. And for me, it was always important. I was actually big. It's my big love to be a person who can contribute to peace process, because when I started to deal with the conflict resolution, actually the war in Kosovo started, and it created a very significant impact on my decision why I would like to deal with conflict resolution and why I would like to be a part of this process to help other countries to find the peace. But later, Ukraine in 2014 faced first, I would say, invasion and annexation of Crimea and Donbass, and also in 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine as a full-scale invasion, it was for me very important to look at the situation from other angle. Yes, Ukraine war is something new, but of course all conflicts have similarities, and because we all always listen to others, and when people suggest us that, look, all conflicts have to be resolved as a negotiation table. But unfortunately not. We can discuss about negotiations only for conflicts non-armed. But when we talk about armed conflicts, we have to look how armed conflicts were resolved. And actually Balkan experience and also Nagorno-Karabakh, but also other experience can serve an example how we can resolve it. Therefore, I focus on these types of conflicts and try to develop some formula which could be used for Ukraine. Of course, it is suggestion. It is sometimes some elements could not be implemented, but for us, we have to look at this as potential and maybe use some elements of this in the future conflict resolution for Ukraine, a Russian war. I will stop here and I am looking for your questions.
So I'll jump in. As you've mentioned, it's normally not one paradigm that is being perceived while trying to resolve a conflict. And in your article, you talk about two types of conflict resolution. Could you share more about that and maybe elaborate on which one had the focus in Nagorno-Karabakh conflict or any other Balkan conflict that you studied, and which one is more dominant in today's Russian-Ukraine war?
When I started to look at Balkans, because I was working with Balkans for 20 years and I know everything about Balkans conflicts. But it's interesting to look at Balkan conflicts from the negotiation process and also from the point of agreements which were concluded. Very often people forget about it. And I am sure many people who on the political decision, on the high political look at them from different angle. And what is interesting, when I started to analyze Balkan conflict and Nagorno-Karabakh, I've actually learned two things. First, you could not stop armed conflict, military conflict, only at the negotiation table. It's very important what actually should European Union, European community, US, other countries learn. It is just impossible. When I started to look how all the conflicts were resolved, I've noticed two types of approaches. First, the first approach, and actually I think that this approach Ukraine should use, it is a force to peace. What it means? It means that first it is actually strengthening of military capabilities of Ukraine or any country which is invaded. And then, plus, we use, of course, negotiations, we use sanctions, we use other pressure on the aggressor to force aggressor to stop the war. In Balkans, very important to say that I use Bosnia and Kosovo example. In Balkans, the wars were stopped by force, not only by strengthening capacities of Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Kosovo. It was stopped by third-party intervention. Actually, NATO intervened. After this, the Dayton Agreement was signed. And in Kosovo, it is attacked Serbian military positions. In Serbia, military objects were attacked by NATO even without a resolution of UN Security Council. It's something what people don't want to talk because it is kind of against international law. A lot of countries criticize it, but in general, after the end of the conflict, many partners, including UN General Secretary, they said that it was an important step and it served for peace purpose. They kind of justified it. However, it was violation of the international law. When we talk about Nagorno-Karabakh, it's a bit different story. And Croatia and Nagorno-Karabakh, it's another approach to conflict resolution. It is conflict resolution through ceasefire, temporary ceasefire, because if you have such military conflict, you could not stop the war just by the signing ceasefire agreement. This ceasefire agreement is temporary interim solution, and then you need to have some steps what you will do to actually resolve conflict. And in Nagorno-Karabakh, they just waited for the period for many years, collaborated with other partners. Azerbaijan collaborated with Turkey, and through military capacities to strengthening their military capacities, and of course, buying or procuring or receiving as assistance military support. I'm talking about drones, missiles, and other. They basically returned territory of Nagorno-Karabakh by force. In Croatia, it is a similar example, but it's a little bit different. In Croatia, what happened? They signed agreement, but they signed agreement only almost like 1 year, less than 1 year after the conflict started. And then they started to prepare operation, and basically during in 3 years they committed operations which allowed them to surround positions of Serbs in Croatia and basically cut them from supply from Serbia. At the end, they take control on the territory which was occupied. But in both cases, in Nagorno-Karabakh and Croatia, it was very important solution that in both cases there were missions. In Nagorno-Karabakh, they were peacekeepers, CIS peacekeepers. In Croatia, there was a UN mission. But still, this mission, and as we see, peacekeepers and mission did not provide sufficient services, and they did not secure it actually the renewal of the conflict. Because like when you have this unresolved conflict, you basically could not expect that it will be frozen. Many people expect that war in Ukraine will be frozen. It's not like this, because usually if you have, we don't talk about Transnistria because it's a bit different case, but normally they was started to renew in a very short period or in a long period. People start to have some small fightings or bigger fightings, and of course one side of the conflict work on strengthening its capacity to relaunch operation and basically either to renew bigger war. I mean, I'm talking about aggressor, or to take control of on this territory. And it is for Ukraine. Basically, I consider the option. First, it's strengthening Ukrainian capabilities, military capabilities, plus sanctions, plus additional pressure on Russia. Actually, for me, operation which was implemented in Iran, it's something like one side, it is a signal to Russia that basically it doesn't matter that you're nuclear power or nuclear country. You can be always attacked, and your nuclear facilities, nuclear bomb can be destroyed. And I think that it is good signal to Russia, but I would continue to elaborate and work on some operation against Russia to force Russia to peace, because Russia's what we see, it became more and more aggressive. It became more and more open with declaring its intention to continue a fight, and not only in Ukraine. It actually wants more than invasion of Ukraine, more than only this occupied territories. But I think it wants some leadership in the world, and basically now it started to talk very openly about it.
Thank you for that analysis. And since you consider that Ukraine should pursue this force to peace path, can you elaborate more? Just due to uneven amount of resources between Ukraine and Russia, and us having less financial powers, less personnel powers, how can we pursue that path? Do you envision that being mostly focused on some specialized operations that, for example, Ukraine special forces carried out with driving drones to Russia and then making them explode? Or do you see that in more international support or some mutual missions or operations carried out with maybe UN, not UN, rather US or our international partners? How can we pursue that force to peace path?
I believe that first it should be common understanding, and it is basically, at least what I understand from the NATO summit, that the common understanding that Russia is a threat to security exists. It is very good, very important. Another thing that I believe that collaboration with other countries to produce weapons for Ukraine, because what happened now in the NATO summit, Ukraine became a kind of a part of the NATO defense system. It's not a member, but still it can receive a weapon, it can receive financial support from NATO members. And basically, all this allocation of funds, I'm talking about the increase funding for defense is 5%, which now we observe NATO members are ready to allocate. It is also can be spent for Ukrainian purposes. But I believe that it should be any funds to fund the war. What I mean that I'm not sure even 18 sanction package will help to avoid or to escape from sanctions. But actually, I think it is something which should be introduced and very quickly checked whether it works or not. Because sanctions policy is something what is good because it's easy. But still, it's not something what is sufficient to counteract any aggressor, any country which is invading another country. And another thing, what I believe is important, in every country, in many countries, people used international fighters. In Ukraine, it is a question which is always very debatable. A lot of people against it. I believe that Ukraine should not rely only on own personnel, on own people, because Ukraine is 3 times less than Russia. We don't have such number of people. And we have to learn from Russia. Russia uses not own people, but they look for others. The same can do Ukraine, and the same was observed in Balkans. All countries used international fighters, and like it was depending on the country. From Muslim countries, people were supporting Bosnia, for example, or Bosniaks. Muslim population in Bosnia and Kosovo. The same in from Christian countries, they were supporting either Serbs or Croats. Therefore, we have to understand that this practice, which was used, however, according to international law, it's not right. But basically now the situation and the nature of conflicts has been changed, and to fight against this the enemy, the actually threat, you have to look for different options, and this way to through contractors engage international or foreign fighters would be a solution. I also I'm supporting idea when European countries will contribute also to support Ukrainian military efforts, not only with a weapon but with personnel. I do support a peacekeeping mission if it established. I think also it would be good, for example, if they have some military personnel who would like to join this war, maybe not officially, but it's like it is also possibility, maybe not to fight on the front line, but to support Ukraine like as instructors. But it's also it would be very beneficial for Ukraine because Croatian operation was prepared with the support of NATO instructors. It means that we can have more possibilities to train personnel who want to join the war and actually support these efforts to win this war. But it's also a technological approach. I think the technological approach is something what is the most important because very often people rely on these very expensive weapon missiles and other things. But we see that drones, they are super important during this war because they not only can carry out some attacks, but they can also ensure protection of personnel. And according to experts, one drone can protect 100 people. It means that it is because the surveillance of the drone allows actually to avoid attack on military personnel, and it is the most important. But it also has other technological advantages which is possible to use. Finally, I believe that there should be some operation against Russia. And Russia should understand if they do not stop this war, they will face consequences. Not maybe similar to Iran, maybe not similar to Iran, but it should be something which is like Russia should expect from the West as a reaction on the, I would say, not very their unwillingness to stop the war, to stop aggression, and basically to sit and negotiate.
Thank you. Before going to my next question, I would like to encourage our audience to type a question in the chat since we'll be wrapping up in about 20 minutes. I had a question about sanctions, but while you were speaking, I actually thought of a different question. And the question is, do you think international law should be updated or edited or adjusted in a way to respond better to modern warfare, to modern conflicts, to this new reality that we face that does not respond to the principles outlined in the international law today?
Yeah, I think first we have to change. We have to work on international security system. We need to change international organizations. At some point, I was even a fan of closing UN, but I understand that we don't have any replacement. Therefore, I believe that we have to just work on changes in the UN system, in the UN Charter. We also need to develop some procedures how to, for example, exclude person from the UN Security Council, not person, but country. Because like I believe that when country violates international law, the country should not be in the Security Council. There should be legal mechanism which allows other countries to do this. And what we have now, it's actually one of things which makes UN system not able to respond to new wars. It is something what is because we have Russia in the UN Security Council, and it chairs sometimes from time to time. But another thing which is important, it's also a revision of the international law. Documents which regulates wars in general. For example, Geneva protocols also can be reviewed because a lot of things they are not in line with the Geneva protocols. For example, I just provide a good example. Now it's very difficult to divide or separate civilian from combatant. What more important that, for example, Russia uses civilians for its war. It's deploy different military objects. I mean, for example, tanks or something in the area where civilians reside. It also attacks civilian houses and claims that it attacked military objects. And then, of course, maybe sometimes military object can be in vicinity, but it doesn't mean that the country can attack civilian houses. And we see it like in Ukraine, a lot of houses were attacked, civilian houses. And of course, Russia always in its speech said that we attacked only military objects. But it's normal for Russia to use civilians for its purposes. Russia always uses like different types of referendums, which are like illegal referendums, which also like if you look at them from all points of international law, you would treat them as illegal. But Russia can say, okay, refer to the UN Charter and say that it's the right for the nation for self-determination. And if you ask many people from international arena, what means this actually? How to divide the right for self-determination and actually when these I don't know rebellions want just to separate from one country? Many people could not provide you clear answer because there is no. But it should be somehow elaborated because I believe that many countries have the same situation. Example, Spain, for example, in Spain, we have Catalonia, Basque states, which always want to separate from Spain, and actually this can be used in other countries, and it can be actually something what influence security in countries and then regions. Another point that basically after collapse of Soviet Union, international law has to be changed. International system has to be changed because Russia could not just join UN on other institutions and as country which in the past was Soviet Union. There should be some procedure of inclusion of other countries, of other republics, which was established in the after collapse of Soviet Union. And it is important to discuss also new challenges. A lot of international security organizations focused on terrorism, but terrorism in this nature as in the form as it was few years ago or 10 years ago, now we don't have. We have other terrorism. It is still terrorism, but it is not when some bomber or some person just use a simple bomb and attack few people. Usually now terrorism, it is I would rather call what Russia do in Ukraine, it is a terrorism, but it is still, it should be somehow amended, incorporated in the international law, and basically after this we can basically work on how to ensure this the implementations of this international law.
Thank you. I absolutely agree that terrorism and many other definitions have to be redefined because in the eyes of our international partners and our allies, and in the eyes of their citizens, it's normally associated with those outdated terms that do not respond to the modern reality. So it just makes it more difficult for us to explain and to get help from them. I have one more question. You laid out your stake on the end of the war in your article very extensively. It's very straightforward. The demilitarization zone on Russian territory, return into Ukraine's borders of 1991, Ukraine becoming a member of NATO, prosecution of Russian war criminals, establishment of international monitoring missions in Russia, fair re-elections on their territory. And you have already mentioned a lot of methods that Ukraine should and can pursue in order to achieve that path. But apart from that ideal version of the peace settlement, you also laid out two more alternative versions of the peace plan. Can you briefly describe them and maybe assess which scenario seems to be the most realistic after the recent attacks and after the NATO summit and with the current geopolitical nature and the state of our world? Can you discuss those scenarios?
It is, I think, the most difficult question because every day situation has been changing. And for example, when I started to write article, I started from ideal scenario, then moved to not ideal scenario, and like provided also pessimistic scenario. But I believe that Ukraine have a chance to have a peace through force. At least now, it's after the NATO summit. It's my I don't know, impression. It's difficult to say. It's something what I don't have argumentation or clear argumentation. I have only a little bit. But it's my feeling after the attack on Iran nuclear facilities. I feel that it is possible. But in general, what I think for Ukraine now is important still to continue to fight. It's important. I would talk about important things which we should not do or like red lines. First, we all saw the requirements or claims of Russia when they said that they would like to occupy, they would like to have control over 4 oblasts plus Crimea, territories which are occupied and not occupied, but some oblasts which partially occupied, but they would like to have control over all oblasts, entire territory of oblast, and I think it's something what we should not do. We should not agree on this. But the same with the occupation of the territory which they occupied. I believe that Ukraine should not agree on any formal recognition of those territories. I explain why. Because it is a precedent for international relations. If we accept something today, it would be very difficult to return. It would be very, it will have a very negative impact on countries which potentially have something on their territories and might face the same problems on their territories. It is like problem not only for Ukraine but for international community. I would not agree on this. If in the worst scenario, Ukraine could not return to the borders of 1991, I would agree on the frozen conflict line on the territory which is like occupied by Russians. But I would claim, if we agree on this, I would claim that international administration or international mission introduced to these territories to monitor violation of human rights or respect of human rights, return of people who left these territories, refugees, IDPs, also return of property. Property right is very important, and I believe that it should be respected in any way. It doesn't matter who controls the territory. Civilians should not be under trap of the politicians, you know. They are, it's their right to return their property. And if something was confiscated, I don't know, captured or destroyed, it should be compensated by Russians, by those who occupied these areas and kept it under control. Another important thing is, of course, return of prisoners, children, and everything related to this humanitarian field. One more point, very important. I still believe that Ukraine should claim compensation of damage. And even if we still agree on frozen conflict on the conflict line, we still have to claim compensation of damage. It can be, Russia can do it voluntarily. It can be through frozen assets, Russian frozen assets. It can be done in any other way. Compensations by using Russian gas and other things. You know, like you can find a way how to compensate. Just the compensation should be done. And of course, it should not be a recognition not only by Ukraine, but also international partners. It is the most important that it is like this frozen of the conflict should not be that any of Ukraine's partner recognizes territories as Russian or as Ukraine lost them. It will open the door for Ukraine to retain these territories anyway. But still, I believe that the best way in this war to strengthen Ukraine capabilities, to provide Ukraine with not only weapon but personnel, and support Ukraine recruitment of foreign fighters by Ukraine, because many countries have such experience and can support, to fight in Ukraine and to actually de-occupy territories which Russia occupied. But I still believe that Russia will not stop, and therefore we have to discuss on some demilitarized zone. I believe that this zone should be in Russia because actually Russia was first who started to invade. It can be like that on some territory there is less military equipment. It's not necessary that it's like absolutely demilitarized. It can be partial demilitarized, but at least it allowed not to attack Ukraine with these short-range missiles, caps, and all this stuff, which is actually destroying Ukrainian cities from the very short distance. I think more or less it is the most important. Of course, tribunal for war criminals. We have already good step. The tribunal we have promised that the tribunal will be established, and we expect that it will be established in practice and will work to ensure that war criminals are prosecuted and punished for their crimes. I think I stop here.
Thank you, Dr. Mariya. Okay, there is a question in the chat that I will read from Yoshio Matsuki. In Ukrainian conflict, if ceasefire is agreed upon, which nations/forces could be ideal peacekeepers for all of the parties?
It is a difficult question. I believe that we have to discuss. Normally, peacekeeping mission is deployed on the both sides on the conflict line. Then, when we talk about Ukrainian side, definitely it should not be Russian or Belarus peacekeepers. I believe that it should be only friendly to Ukraine nations. It can be Turkey, for example. It is well accepted in Russia, but it is a partner of Ukraine. But it should not be definitely part of the conflict. And we know who is part of the conflict: Russia, Belarus, North Korea, and China. But also, of course, on the other side of the conflict line, there should be also deployment of the peacekeepers, and it should not be only a friends of Russia. It should be partners who can impartially observe how this ceasefire is violated or not. I will provide example why it is important. In Ukraine, after 2014 was established OSCE monitoring mission, which should monitor violation of ceasefire and human rights violation and other things. At the end, this mission, because it included Russian representatives, and I was mentioned, some people from OSCE mentioned that we should not exclude them because Russia is a member of OSCE. And it doesn't matter that Russia is a part of the conflict. But at the end, we had false reports about a violation of ceasefire and everything would happen in this area. I mean, in Donbass, close to the conflict line, where Ukrainian authorities and the Ukrainian or other partners could not have access. Therefore, it's very important to have partners in monitoring mission, in peacekeeping mission, who can ensure impartiality and actually secure peace and ceasefire.
Thank you. And there is a follow-up question. How about Australia, New Zealand, or Japan as peacekeeping forces? What do you think about that?
We would be happy to see them. We have good relationship with all these countries. We'd be happy to have them.
There's a comment by Vasil Horbachuk. As for Karabakh, the expertise by Ramis Yunus is interesting, which is not a question, but a comment. And there's a longer question from Elena Dmitrenko. Let me read it to you. Considering that Russia's aggression against Ukraine is not the first, Chechnya, Georgia, it seems like none of the legal mechanisms make Russia stop invading new countries and threatening others. Sanctions definitely work long-term, but it's the people we're losing in the war. Exhausting Russian resources, human, financial, will take way longer. Is there anything that could possibly happen in order for the collective West to be more brave in opposing Russia? Meaning actions, not words. The West has no problem fighting smaller states that are not as bold on the international arena. Thank you. So the question is there anything that could possibly happen in order for the collective West to be more brave and oppose Russia in actions rather than words?
Combination of efforts plus severe operation against Russia. I believe that destruction of Russian military capabilities, I mean, when Ukraine attacked with Operation Network, Russian military fleet, airplanes, it actually, it was good, very efficient operation. It was very good operation. Operation in Iran, when US basically destroyed weapon which was very deep. It means that it's something what can also be used against Russia. And I believe such operation is possible because in Iran, something was tested. It was a test how it's possible to attack nuclear country. I believe that combination of sanctions, but severe sanction when a country could not function, could not sell, could not earn, and could not avoid. It's very important because currently Russia avoids through sanctions through other countries, and basically it still earns. It earns less, but still earns. I believe that if you use this combination of acts of different measures, and then you use some operation against Russia, would destroy military capability of Russia. It is way for resolution of Russian-Ukraine war.
Thank you for the answer. We will take the last question since the session is going to the end. The question is from Irina Kupchinska. How is Nagorno-Karabakh now, economic-wise? And I can assume identity warfare and hybrid Russian offense is continuing.
Unfortunately, Russian peacekeepers, which were deployed in Nagorno-Karabakh, they left. And now, of course, the situation in Nagorno-Karabakh is not easy. Plus, a lot of people, a lot of Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, they claimed they are persecuted and imprisoned by Azerbaijani authorities. But you know, like it is always the most difficult part. When you return some territory, the human rights and violation of human rights is the most difficult, because even in Croatia, when they returned the territories, a lot of Serbs were killed. Because in Croatia, for those who doesn't know, in Croatia there is a part Srpska Krajina. It is a part which is mostly populated by Serbs. And when actually the war started, because these Serbs wanted separation from Croatia, but it's like almost inside Croatia, and it's quite big territory. And basically because of it, after the war, a lot of Serbs were threatened that they will be killed, and they just left Croatia and never returned. Some also claim that their rights are violated, but still, this problem of respect of human rights to those who perceived as a reason for the war, because Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh actually were first who initiated this conflict, and therefore you always will have these problems. Still, it's very difficult to improve situation in Nagorno-Karabakh. I mean, in this area where you have occupation, because these areas for a long time lived a very strange life. They don't have normal trade. They don't have normal production. It is like a semi country, and to make it economically independent, to make it economically strong, it's always very difficult. Plus, human rights issue always very difficult, and the best way to monitor somehow this situation by some international organizations. But it not always it works, and sometimes you have violation of human rights on those territories.
Thank you, Dr. Heletiy. We will wrap up the session. I want to thank everyone for coming and joining and for asking those questions. I want to thank you, Mariya Heletiy, for joining the session and sharing your expertise. I will pause the recording now, and we will share it with everyone.